Why is this 8-year-old girl talking about mating? Hello and welcome, my leaves in a certain context. Today, I want to talk about context. And I'm gonna do that by taking two examples out of first Dobutsu no Kuni by Raiko Makoto and Neiichiro Oda's One Piece. Let's get into it. So, let us start with Dobutsu no Kuni. At the front, we see those two children, which are both 8 years of age, talk with each other and, well, suddenly Capri, the girl here, says, "You have the urge to mate with me?" Which, if you just take it that way, people will probably complain about it a lot. Because children at that age obviously should not mate. If you have a different opinion on that, please go through the door there. It leads straight into a lava pit. Well, that is not taking any context here. And people do that a lot. You always see that, especially on places like Twitter, because Twitter's a hellhole that people should avoid. But if you don't take it out of context, this scene actually makes sense. I guess spoilers for Dobutsu no Kuni, which is an old manga by Gash Bell creator Raiku Makoto. But, well, it's old. Spoilers, if you don't want that, skip this, I guess. But here's what this world is about. In Dobutsu no Kuni, there are barely any humans. I haven't finished the series yet. I'm currently reading it. But at this point, these are the only two humans that have appeared. And, well, one was raised by Tanuki, which is Tarosa, which is the boy. And she was raised by lions. Now think about that. Why wouldn't an 8-year-old girl who was raised by lions and can understand lions, that's the whole point of this series, they can understand the cries of each animal, while the animals can only understand the cries of their own kind. If that is the case, why wouldn't she know about mating? That doesn't mean she mated with anybody yet, but lions learn that at a young age. It's also a wild world. It's basically like a savanna or jungle out there, where this is just normal. Of course she knows about that. And the way she thinks about stuff is in a more animalistic sense. So she doesn't think sexually about this at all, which is good for a child. She just thinks, well, male of my species, I'm a female of my species. Just makes sense that we mate, doesn't it? That's how the world works. That's the view she has of this world due to the context of this story. So, people would complain about this just because of her age, without taking the context into mind, as they should, actually. And that is a huge problem. Let's get to the next example of One Piece now. This is Bonnie, Julie Bonnie, who is... spoilers, I guess, but if you haven't reached the Egghead arc now, do you care about spoilers? You have been warned. She is actually a child. She has the power to change her age, thus she appears as an adult woman. And she undresses right in front of Luffy, Chopper, and Jinbei. None of the three in any way act anything creepy like. They just don't. They treat this as normal. And now you also have to take context into consideration again. Because yes, you might argue that, hey, you cannot show someone undressed, especially if she's actually a child, that's not good. But there are two things about this. First off, they need to dry their clothes. This is a survival situation, and undressing here is the thing you should do, because it's much better to be naked than to have wet clothes, because that freezes you up way more. So it makes sense. They do it for that. Then, yes, she is a child. I think it was like 11 years old actually. And thus, her undressing in front of people, it's like, as a child, you don't have a problem with that. A lot of people were like, when they were small, naked on a beach. I was, certainly. And didn't care because there is no sense of sexuality for us. So that act of her undressing in front of them without thinking twice about it, that also makes a lot of sense. And then there is a meta context, if you want. A context from outside of the pages of the manga. This was written by someone who is Japanese. In Japan, nudity isn't really viewed as anything sexual necessarily. Of course, you can put it in a sexual context. Context again, you see. Which wasn't done here. This is not a sexual context. This is just the context of drying your clothes. And the way nudity is seen is basically your soul is naked. Nudity is the purest form of a body. There's nothing on it that's man-made or anything, even though you could argue that humans are man-made because you need two humans to make a human, but I digress. And it's a very, very different viewpoint than the West has on nudity. In the West, nudity is more seen as something to be shy about, to don't show in public and stuff. And yeah, of course, even in Japan, you cannot just go like naked in public. But they have bathhouses that are frequently visited. Some people don't even have a bath at home and only wash themselves, clean themselves at bathhouses, where you don't go in with like a bathing suit, but completely naked. Most of them nowadays are divided by gender, but there are still spots where you can take a bath where gender doesn't matter. Everybody can get in and there is absolutely no sexuality about that. And thus, given that context of Oda being Japanese, just that context alone gives you the idea, hopefully, that this scene might not be bad, but just something that's, well, an absolute non-issue. It's just what it is. You just have to take it as she is drying her clothes. And yeah, nobody cares about it. As you can see with how they act. Like, Luffy isn't interested in it at all. Chop as a reindeer, so why should he care? Jinbei as a fishman, well, I guess fishmen could be into humans, but Jinbei is a gentleman. He wouldn't care. He would be okay with that. And nobody mentions anything as well. That's the Japanese spirit in this. It's just like bathing together. It's fine. Everything is all okay. Everything is just all okay here. And that is exactly why context matters. You see, these scenes, or similar scenes, if you just take them head on, yeah, you can see problematic things in there. But taking stuff like this just head on is stupid. And thus you as a writer, if you are a writer, like I am, should also always think about, should I do this? Does this make sense in this context? Because if it doesn't make sense in that context, you're just doing it for the sake of it. That's not good. You gotta do it because it makes sense in the situation, in the world you have created, in whatever you're writing, and if it fits the scene you are writing as well. Keep that in mind. The context is very important here. And if you are on Twitter and want to complain about something, before you complain, take this, take a page or whatever of a book, manga, a scene of a show. Take that, but step back. Step back, look at it, and what it's surrounding there, and then think about it. Is it really bad, or does it make sense? And then you can come back to the actual thing and talk about it. Your opinion might not change through the context. That is okay. That can still be your opinion. You can still be of the opinion that even with the context, this Bonnie scene or that Dobutsu no Kuni scene isn't good. Okay. But you still need to take the context into consideration before saying anything about it. Because just blurting it out without looking at the whole picture makes you seem like an idiot. Do you want to be an idiot? Bye. Also, watch this video, like and subscribe, of course.